So we've got our text looking pretty much the way we want it to. Let's save this thing. We had talked about a structure and some of the other classes where we're going to save this. So I'm going to go to File, Save As, so we can put this right where I want it. You'll notice that I have a folder in my computer graphics, O2 Digitize Your Name. Nice way of keeping track of things. You'll see that I have some other versions that I had started earlier. So I always like to go numerically when I'm doing these things. We're going to call this CE3. And we'll save that. These settings are all good here. Create a PDF compatible file, use compression. This is your typical default that comes up. So these are all looking good. Alright. So now you'll notice that we're saved. Okay. When we digitize, we like to create a new layer so that we're not messing around with our old layer, right? So now I've clicked this icon down here. Let's do that one more time so you can see that. Create a new layer right there. I'm going to lock this layer, and then in order to not cover up what I'm digitizing, I'm going to control click on the visibility icon. So now we're in wireframe mode. See how we have this eye has a little bit more information in there. This eye is just an outline. So I'm going to zoom in. There's a lot of different ways you can zoom in. I like to hold down the space bar and the control key and then zoom in. Now for the sake of demonstration, rather than me doing this whole thing, I'm going to zoom in on the letter G and do this. Alright, so you'll see it's kind of lumpy. In order to get the compound path, we want to do the outside of all of this, and then we'll do the inside separately. So depending on how you want to work, you can unite all these letters and digitize them individually, or if you're brave and you're feeling very good about things, you can digitize it, in a long string, making a very complicated path. Remember to hit Control U. You do not want to have Smart Guides on. Okay. You can find out whether Smart Guides are on by coming here to View, and it's down here, Smart Guides. Okay, so it's either on or it's off. You can tell when it's on because you're going to get these little readouts. So this means that Smart Guides is on, and it's going to make it a little bit more difficult for you to work. Okay, I'll hit Control U again, and now you'll notice that there are no little labels that come up when I'm overlapping things. Okay, so remember Control U for digitizing. Another thing that might be helpful is if you hit Caps Lock. Notice that we have a cursor that looks like a pen. It's kind of a clunky thing. I think we can get more precise if we hit Caps Lock, and now we have a nice little X. Not necessarily that you have to do that, but it could help you in some instances. So let's start clicking and dragging. Alright, so I'm going to click and drag on a horizontal area and drag my Bezier curves out, almost as if the trajectory of that curve is being defined by where I hit. Okay, then I can come down here on a vertical area, Control Z, come down here and click, and then hold down the Shift key, and it's going to give me a very nice smooth curve. Okay, down in here we're going to create another point, and I'm going to take that trajectory and continue that. We're going to have a corner in our curve. To get a corner in the curve, hold down the Alt key, and you'll notice the cursor changed. Okay, that's our anchor control point, and I can click and drag this out now, and now coming back down to a vertical point, I can just hold down the Shift key, get my vertical curve. What happened? Try that again. Vertical curve, let go of the cursor. Alright, clicking, dragging, horizontal surface. Alright, and then the less points you put in a curve, the smoother it can be. Okay, if you put a lot of curves in there, it may start looking lumpy, but as you're learning, you'll find out what works best for you. So now we're going to put this finishing touch down here. We got a corner. To get the corner, holding down the Alt key, bringing this cursor, bringing my Bezier curve handle down. Notice how I'm smoothing this out. I'm not creating every single notch in there. That's part of the exercise, okay? So here I'm going to hold down Control and watch this. I can adjust on the fly, okay? By holding down the Control key, it takes me back to a cursor. So here I'm going to come up, and if I'm coming into a corner, I may want to create a corner like that where I have my anchor points rather closely together, okay? So here I'm going to fudge this, and we're going to make this come up to about here. All right. Putting in a corner, coming down, coming up here, right, down, corner here, vertical. I'm going to come in here because, well, actually let's do this. We'll adjust, holding down the Control key, pulling that Bezier curve handle back up. All right, there we go. Tiny little curve there. Corner. You get the hang for where you need to put your anchor points. And I am going to close this off and now by doing the outside of these shapes. So I'm just going to do the E and G very quickly. Let's fix that. Corner point. I'm going to smooth off this little tab right there. Whoa, out of control. Control point, pull that in. Come on. Alt to get the corner. And it's very important that you close these shapes. You always need to come back to your point. So see how we have the cursor is now changing to that little circle there? That means we're closing that shape. I'm going to hold down the Shift key because we started off on a horizontal, and now we've got that. Let's take a look at what I just digitized. Let's turn this off, okay? And we can look at this. So you'll see that we just did the outside of those shapes. We do not have the hole in our G's, okay? Let's get back and check out how to do that. So clicking on the visibility icon here, Control clicking here, okay? I'm going to click outside of that so that now nothing is selected. I'm going to come back to my pen tool, and I'm going to come in here and just very quickly create the inside of that G. Corner point, holding down the Alt key. There we go. So now we have 3 objects if we were to look at this. All right. That's how it's showing up in our editor and our layer window. I can come back, deselect that. All right. If you want to see how this all looks, that's in the wireframe. That's what we've got. So we have a black shape over top of a black shape. It's very important when you do a compound path that the top object, which is cutting the hole, needs to be a little bit smaller or you're going to get unexpected results. Just to make this very clear on how this is all going to work, I'm going to draw a rectangle that goes through here. Let's change that color. By change the fill color, I'm clicking on the box down here. I'm going to move my cursor up here, and we're going to make that red. One thing we have not talked about in class yet, I think I went over this just very quickly, is how to reorder an object. So we can come up here to Object, Arrange, Send to Back. Okay. If you wanted to do that in here, you can click here and change your order as well. 2 different ways of reordering an object. Okay. To select more than one object at a time, click on the object with your selection tool. That's the V or the black arrow, right? then hold down the Shift key and click the other objects that you need. To create a compound path, you can either hit Control 8, or you can come up here under Compound Path, Make. And there we go. So now you can see that there is something underneath this. Alright? So this would be how you're going to create your text. So I'm going to do this really quickly offline, and then when we come back, I will show you where we go from there. Okay?